Okay, so the last couple weeks we've been critiquing movie starring Linda Florentino, right?
Yeah.
Florentino. This is weird. She was actually supposed to be in this movie as Julie Redland, and we would have a trilogy upset of Linda Florentino, but due to scheduling conflicts, she had to back out, and Renee Renuso filled in. Hi, everybody. I'm Nick from the St. Paul Filmcast.
I'm Kyle Goethe from GoatFilmReviews.com. Linda Fiorentino's around here somewhere. We're going to talk about Freejack.
Where?
Welcome back to the show. I'm one of your hosts, Kyle Goethe from GoatFilmReviews.com.
Hi, I'm Nick from the St. Paul Filmcast. Thanks for watching. Thanks for finding us. And for our loyal fans, thank you for continuing to support the show. You can follow the show on Twitter and on Instagram. Both Kyle and I are members of the Minnesota Film Critics Alliance. Check out their webpage for film critics reviews as well as ours. And today we're going to talk about a long-forgotten sci-fi film from the 90s. It's called Freejack.
Right. Race car driver Alex Furlong is supposedly killed in a fatal collision, but he awakens in 2009, having been pulled out of time by mercenary Victor Vasendak. Vasendak plans to sell his body to the McCandless Corporation, but Alex escapes and goes on the run, his only ally being his fiancée Julie, who works at McCandless.
Okay, so this is based on the book called Immortality Incorporated by Robert Sheckley. In 1959, it was nominated for Hugo for Best Book of the Year. I think it didn't win out, but it got nominated. It was a lot of people trying to figure out how you can make this into a movie. I think the rights it was on the shelf for a long time, so eventually around 90s, with the success of Philip K. Dick books being turned into movies, that somebody's like, well, sci-fi is big now. This kind of concept is big now. Let's get it out there.
Yeah,
so
it seems like the cyberpunk genre was kind of like bursting anew in the 80s. You have things like Blade Runner, even though less than successful films, did kind of have that cult.
Now around the late 90s was getting his bearings.
Yeah, I suppose that was probably when the director's cut came out, so I'm sure that film was coming there.
Right,
so.
yes. So in charge directing is George Murphy. George Murphy is famous for not being the director of the Lord of the Rings trilogy, but actually working as second unit director, pretty much catching everything that actors not into.
Oh yeah.
So all the helicopter scenes and everything, the action scenes with no stunt, just primary stuntmen, no really stars. That's what the second unit director does, and he did that for the entire series because he is from, I think, New Zealand as well. And of course, I'm sure he ran into Peter before they even did the movie.
They were probably, I'm sure, aware of each other. Everyone's trying to make it to Hollywood, of course. And I remember Jeff Murphy as the director of Young Guns 2.
Yes.
Where he carried over Emilio Estevez to this film with him.
Right,
something that they probably wouldn't work together ever again, because Emilio Estevez said that he failed the production, Jeff Murphy did, by not completing the film the way he was supposed to. In fact, was reshot 40%.
Yes,
so.
We'll get into that as well, because reshot was one of the writers of the movie, and that's Ronald Suchet. He's a co-writer for Alien and Total Recall. This is why it has a little bit of look like Total Recall. We get back to a little more when we get our personal reviews. Another person is Dan Gilroy.
Yeah.
Dan Gilroy has a twin, John, and an older brother, Tony.
Yes.
And then he's actually, interesting, married to Renee Russo. They married in 1992. I wonder if they met on set.
They did, because the film, of course, was pushed back from its 91 release date, so it had been shot before that. And due to that, of course, due to the poor press screening, we had some time. So I believe they were married before the film came out. But they had known each other for a couple years at that point.
Yeah, and this is Renee Russo. She was definitely one of the, not the marquee supermodels. I mean, she wasn't like, Brooke Shields or Cindy Crawford, kind of that epsilon, but she was definitely a model that was almost in the supermodel epsilon, but she wanted to get to acting, and this is her getting into it. I think this is before Lethal Weapon?
This is before Lethal Weapon 3, which is her first film in that series.
So this is where she actually gets to show off her skills a little bit more than she ever before.
Yeah.
I think this is more of a Renee Russo coming out party than anything else.
It's ironic that the poster had to make time to get Anthony Hopkins on the front, even though he's probably in about 12 minutes of the movie.
Oh, yeah.
And then shuck Renee Russo out of the poster, in which case I think this is, if nothing else, the film gives us Renee Russo. I don't know that she had a bigger claim to fame until this film, and having it come out in 92, then of course probably spring-loaded her into Lethal Weapon 3. What's great about Renee Russo, though, is that she always, in every movie she's in, she always kind of can handle the lead actor.
Yes.
Even if she's never the lead herself a lot of the times, she can throw down on screen.
I get what you mean. She can match the intensity.
She's not afraid to do scenes with Hopkins, with Estevez, with Jagger.
Yeah. So what I'm trying to get established is this is kind of 1992. It's a little bit of the transition from what we did from the 80s to what cyber noir is going to get from the 90s. This is the block, and why I say it got not only from the production as a problem, we'll get into our review later, but it gets neglected also because we're getting away from the 80s, Philip K. Dick, Total Recall. I'll call that 80s, even though it's kind of 90s.
Yeah.
But so we're kind of getting away from that. We're looking for something new from sci-fi. When we saw this in 1992, we almost think it's like recycled stuff from the late 80s.
I was under the impression this film came out in 1987. I don't know why. I have no idea why, but as I'm watching it, I'm thinking 1987.
Well, I remember had the rock music from the Scorpions.
That could be. I remember thinking to myself that it was odd to have a movie set in 91 and 2009 when it was made in 87, but then as I turned out later, I was like, oh, I'm just really off about the time, but you're right, it does give those vibes of the late 80s.
Cinematography is Amir, I'm going to say it wrong, Mokri?
Sorry, guys.
This is actually, I think, would be his calling card to work later on with people that do very wide cinematography shots like Zack Snyder and Michael Bay. He will go on to work with these things, and this is kind of a stepping block of what he's able to do. We could talk about how bad and awful the movie is, but he kind of shown his talents, especially with the classic in the warehouse chasing the bad guy and all the anonymous people. But he shoots it really well. You have certain framing shots that are really talented. I say overall, if the story, we'll talk about it later, but cinematography, probably another thing that pops out.
Yeah, it's funny. We can kind of talk about this film in a lot of ways as it being underwhelming to a lot of the critics, much like in a way like Eyes of Laura Mars kind of was on a previous episode, where it said it actually birthed a lot of other great things. Because Amir Mokri had done, he's on Man of Steel. Say what you will about the Transformers sequels, but he worked on those and they look gorgeous.
Aesthetically, yes.
So you can showcase a lot of, I guess when your film doesn't holistically work in one sense, that a lot of the great elements do springboard off of it, because most people can say, love it or hate it, this is really good, that's really good. So there is kind of that element of this movie springboarding things that might not have had a career otherwise.
So if you're already watching and connecting the dots, you can see Jeff Murphy likes to shoot action. You get the action a lot in this movie, as well as Amir with cinematography. They're a great team to shoot action sequences and stunts, and you get a lot of that.
Yeah.
I think when you talk about a movie that has 3 people attached to the screenplay, too many cooks in the oven.
Maybe
cooks in the kitchen.
So.
Right.
Well, and it goes back to what we were saying, though. What I mentioned about Emilio Estevez saying that Murphy kind of failed in making the film work was because Estevez critiqued the fact that Murphy was more focused on creating the action than about the characters, which kind of made me think back to The Young Guns 2, which is, again, more focused on action than the first film, but it had the benefit of having the first film focus on the characters.
You already
so that
build
you knew most of them at that point, and you didn't feel the need to more develop.
Yeah, and I'll get to using that as a stepping stone to get to my point of view as well a little bit later. So Ronald Shusett would do the reshoots. It's mostly forgotten. I want to check out, if you Google this movie and review, check out Bailey Moore from podcast Memory Static. It's a film podcast. Her essay about the movie is spot on. She's kind of a little bit younger than us. And she just discovered this movie by accident because it's on Pluto. She'd never heard of it. She's like, there's a movie with Mick Jagger and Anthony Hopkins. I've never heard about this movie. And they kind of down that rabbit hole. It's a sci-fi. And I think that's going to be the enticement. If you never heard this movie, you've never seen this movie, you kind of want to find out what's going on.
My thing was Mick Jagger. When you say Mick Jagger is going to be in a movie, and he's not even doing a song, nor is his band doing a song. That's one of the things people also talk about is the fact you got a Mick Jagger in performance, and you don't even get a song. You have a theme song at the end.
Yeah, and it's not Mick Jagger. It's not the Rolling Stones, right?
So
it's
I think a lot of people are just more curious. They're like, well, he must have been really good in this movie because they didn't even ask him to do anything else. Like, it wasn't like how, like, I criticize Beyonce's acting in a number of films, but they usually get her and then she does a song for the soundtrack and you do what you can with it. Mick Jagger being in this film is kind of surprising. It's one where you're like, wait, what? How do I see this? You know?
And I would cite her again. Her name is Bailey Moore, and she in her essay critiqued who is more out of place. Kind of, this is it's a filmmakers' debate. Who in 1992, who's a little more out of place in the movie? Was it Mick Jagger in this film, or was it Keanu Reeves in Bram Stoker's Dracula? Either way, you win because Anthony Hopkins is in it.
I will defend Keanu Reeves again. No,
but it is kind of like that. The enticement is it's so out of place. But he's comfortable wearing whatever. You could put anything on Mick Jagger as a costume. You'll wear it. You won't object.
I mean, in many ways, Mick Jagger is not a criticism or a gift, but he is playing Mick Jagger. He is playing himself at that moment, you know.
He did a movie was called Ned Kelly, which is the famous Australian outlaw. It was in the 70s, and it's Mick Jagger playing Ned Kelly.
Yeah, it's almost like Kiss Saves Santa. It's kind of like, you know that they're playing themselves. Like
Right.
but maybe you go back to Anthony Hopkins, as you mentioned, being in Dracula in this film. It might come down to the fact that he still really adores Dracula, and he was quoted as saying this was a terrible film. So if you're looking at criticisms from Anthony Hopkins, there's yours for the film. But yeah.
It doesn't like he winks at the camera. He actually puts an effort to it. I mean, that's one thing Anthony Hopkins, he says it's this, that.
I wonder if he puts effort or if it's just Anthony Hopkins being Anthony Hopkins. Like, I don't know if he's ever put in a bad performance in a film.
I get it, I understand, because it's Anthony Hopkins playing the boss.
Even a day off, even a day where he's in front of green screens for most part, he's still knocking it out of the park.
It's very obviously green screen, but it turned me off when I can't tell you when I first saw this movie. I know it was in the 90s, but now it turned me off like, that's really bad. But now it's almost kind of an enjoyable thing about it because it's so bad.
See, that's the thing about those kinds of effects from the late 80s, early 90s, is they had an endearing quality to them. You can still say that they look bad, but they might have looked bad back then. It doesn't matter because they have this, like, they belong in the movie. They fit in the movie very nicely. Yeah. Okay, so as Anthony Hopkins said, he said the film was terrible. I don't think it's terrible. It's flawed. I think everyone knows that going in.
Yeah, I think it's not the greatest sci-fi movie out there, but that's the interesting element. It's such forgotten. Then it's one of those things. It's almost like you uncover treasure. Like this. Have you heard about the sci-fi? It's Mick Jagger and Anthony Hopkins overall.
Yeah, it's a film full of peculiarities. There's a lot of interesting moments in it that I don't really know why they're there. I don't deride them. They were fun. Like having Frankie Faison's long-winded eagle metaphor that doesn't seem to really add anything to the narrative at all.
No, it doesn't. And I have to agree, it's a really patchy editing. So a lot of the film just feels patchwork. Like this jumps to one set scene to another. And I would say the cutting is a little weird. All of a sudden you have a cut to, now they're in the car, and a cut to the thing. And I think that's because a lot of the reshoots, probably a lot of the rewrites. It's just the nature of the beast when you're editing a movie that's pocketing reshoots and you have a lot of writing. So overall, I think you and I, aesthetically, it's interesting.
Yeah.
But definitely need help with the writing.
Yeah.
And I think you have two directors, like Jeff Murphy and the cinematographer, Amir, who love to film action. That is their primary objective, is to shoot action. They're not going to care about story. I think you need somebody, a director who likes story, with a cinematographer who likes to shoot action.
Yes.
You can't have both, one or the other.
Yeah, or else you get a cinematographer who works really well with character moments and can really light a person's face during those emotional resonance scenes. Yeah, we have three different screenwriters. I'm not entirely aware of Stephen Pressfield, but of course I know Shusett, I know Dan Gilroy's done a ton. That whole Gilroy family has just been so instrumental in the current film landscape.
That's another whole new episode we talk about what the Gilroys have contributed to film.
Holy crap, that would be a whole long one. But you get, what some of the things I appreciate about the film. I like the musical score from Trevor Jones. I do like the theme song for the film, even though I do wish it actually had been given over to Mick Jagger because it would have been fun to see how that worked.
Yeah, what you do, like I said, when you show off your people, you have talents. If you have a talent, like if you have Mick Jagger, would you like to do a song for this movie?
Yeah. We all win. If your movie ends up being great, we're looking at a Best Original Song nomination
Even
at the
if
Oscars.
the movie, even if the song becomes popular than the movie, eventually it lives on for something.
Yeah, I remember actually I have a really rare cassette tape with the Guns N' Roses song from Terminator 2. And it's just that song, played 5 times through on the cassette tape, and it was sold as like a coming soon, this movie, Terminator 2. The song's not great, but what a heck of a piece of marketing. And that maybe could have been the thing that Mick Jagger could have brought to that table.
So, the difficult thing is when you work with people who love to just primarily shoot action, you get great sci-fi action, but you need to concentrate on your world building. Any person in a writer's workshop, when you're doing a sci-fi in the future, you want to establish why there is a class struggle in this. I don't understand. It's interesting, but I don't understand why everybody's starving, and then you have a rich epsilon. It doesn't really explain. I want a little more detail of these, what's called bone jackers.
Yeah. That's what I wanted. I wanted more of that mythology because there's something interesting there. And like you pointed out, there's just a lack of explanation for things. We don't need everything handed out, but this film does feel at times like you've got the edges of the puzzle put together, but nothing in the middle. And so you're trying to just kind of branch. Like,
exactly.
When I saw the divide of like the wealthy and the not wealthy, I'm like, well, in 2022 we have a divide like that. So I start like adding those elements myself. I'm building mythology, which I shouldn't need to do. You've got that, and the bonejacker things, they sound terrifying.
I love it. I love the name.
That,
I like it. It's almost like they need their own movie.
Yeah, like if you're gonna, I wouldn't even remake this film. I would just do a spin-off called Bonejackers, and I'd bring back.
Because you don't really know. Are they bounty hunters? Are they looking to Freejack? Because of what a Freejack is somebody escapes their assigned destination for another body host.
Yeah.
And so through certain things, all of a sudden they're free, and there's a bounty to reclaim that person.
Yeah.
So it's like Altered Carbon, almost, if you check out that sci-fi Netflix series where you can submit your consciousness in a different body by placing a disc right there. It's kind of the same kind of concept.
It's an interesting comparison, actually.
Yeah.
When I felt the film being that way is it felt like a multitude of people searching for Alex the entire time. There's so many people out there hunting him down, and I really wanted some more explanation. What makes these guys different from these guys? Are they working like we kind of get that throughout the film, but I shouldn't be searching that hard for it. Because again, I actually really like Mick Jagger in this movie, not because he's giving a great performance, but he's having fun. And sometimes that fun is palpable because this film is not Oscar worthy. So if you lack Oscar worthiness, you have to, take it on entertainment alone. And he's really having fun, and I'm having fun watching it.
Where you find where you're winning.
Yep.
And if it seems out of place, well, let's win there as also let's put him in an outrageous costume so he can emerge and sell it. So comfortable. As a film director, work with your actors. I mean, Emilio Estevez said he had no help from Jeff Murphy. We're working the film. He had to go what he trusts on. So directors, sit down, talk with your actors eventually. Yeah. I mean, you can blow up the world if you want, but you have to understand what the actors' feedback.
Well, that's the frustrating
thing
with your
Freejack
is you've got Emilio Estevez, who I'm not going to say he's miscast in the film. I think he's misdirected in the film. Because he is basically, I saw some comparisons was that he was basically placed in the film to be the next Arnold, to be the next Stallone. And there's even that, F you asshole moment in the bar where he's actually quoting Arnold Schwarzenegger from The Terminator.
That's a great catch. I've seen this movie 3 times and I never realized.
Oh man, I just watched The Terminator. I probably wouldn't have gotten it either. But he's being placed in the film as that. Yeah, he thinks it's funny. You place him in this movie to be the next action star. I think he feels like you pulled him out of Young Guns. You got Freejacked out of Young Guns and placed into this movie. Yeah. When I think he should have been more directed to play a similar role to the character he played in Repo Man, where he's a bit more hard-edged, where the world is turned on him a little bit. And maybe this race at the beginning of the film is not one of an up-and-comer, but one of a if you fail, you're not going back.
A little more or less bewilderment about what happened to you, and a little more have an edge to you what happened to you.
Yeah, he seems like he's having a little too much fun with his with his character, and his character should be absolutely terrified. Everyone in the world wants him dead, and they're going to give up $10 million to have him dead. He has no chance. He should be concerned.
There's, of course, when you got Mick Jagger in their film, he's going to bring his girlfriend on set. At the time, he was dating Jerry Hall, and it was nice to see her in this movie interviewing. Yeah, of course, when you're Mick Jagger, you can do that.
I saw that after the fact, because I knew her, and I was like, gosh, she looks so familiar, Hall, and I couldn't put it together because she doesn't share a scene with Jagger in the film.
No, but she's doing the interview, and he's watching.
Yeah.
TV, right.
Probably how they met, is he saw her on TV and was like, I gotta get me some of that. Speaking of people who are in love on set, Rene Russo didn't only find love with Dan Gilroy on this film. Of course, she would go on to be the love of Anthony Hopkins' life in the Thor franchise. So it's interesting to see that he fell in love with her in this film, and
this
he didn't
is why I
get
like
to have
talking
her
movies with
for
you.
20 more years.
Renee's and they had the out because he professes his love for her in the movie.
Yeah, so he didn't get to win her heart that day, but give it about 19 years, buddy. You'll get your chance.
Okay, we're going to talk about, because we talk about Mick Jagger, another singer, but there is another singer in this movie, and that's David Jonason from the New York Dolls. Buster Poindexter is in this movie. So
it's funny you point that out, because
I know you get second billing to Mick Jagger.
I only associate him as an actor, though. I never think of him as a musician. So when you even said it, I was like, wait, there's another? Oh, yeah, of course he is. I think of him, of course, like Scrooge.
You didn't have a New York Dolls poster in your room like I did.
No, I had a Hulk Got Milk one. Anyway, David Johansen's great in this movie, but it is notable that you've got a Mick Jagger-esque actor playing, a similar kind of role. They both seem like they could have been brothers. I was convinced that they were going to be brothers at some point in the film, and that would
that kind of relationship, because he's almost that oily salesman person.
But speaking of David Johansen and Rene Russo, there's one capital problem with both their characters in this film, and that is that, my God, you didn't even try to age them up. It's been 18 years.
Clever.
You didn't even try. Yeah. I mean, Rene Russo looks lovely today.
Well, dye your hair
decades
a little bit,
later.
just put
give a little bit of white.
Or explain why that nobody ages, that there's some out there.
Yeah.
Right.
I kept thinking that was going to be a twist, was somebody Freejacked them.
Yeah.
And then we found out that neither one of them was. I was like, again, building mythology of my own in the film, and it's like, was there no makeup budget at all?
So yeah, one of the difficult things about sci-fi world development, build the world around you, explain it out to you. You don't have to do exposition. Why? Doing the movie did a great job without a lot of exposition, world building in that movie.
Dune is one of the prime examples of how you world build, because when you look at the adaptation of that film, the book does a lot of world building with stuff you couldn't do in a movie.
It has a dictionary attached to it.
Yeah, it's a freaking dictionary in there too. But you get a lot of these characters showing up here. I enjoyed enough of the film, but I think overall it was like an okay kind of thing. You know, I thought it was like fine. I wouldn't mind seeing another crack taken at this world in some way, but again, I don't know.
That was my next question to you. Would you think it's up for a remake?
I think it would be up for a remake, yeah. Or else, I like your idea of the Bonejackers spin-off, where it's like, don't even reference the fact that they're spun off from Freejack. Just make a show called the Bonejackers.
We're looking for Freejacks, yeah.
And then that way you kind of have like a little hint at like, hey, if you like the show, check out this weird movie from a couple decades ago.
Yeah. So overall, I think if you like sci-fi films, definitely put that on your list to check out. It's just a patchy work. That's a lot of rewrites. And like I said, we've already established what the problems with it. But overall, you probably enjoyed that you got the opportunity to see it. There's a lot of things still working with it. I like the ending. It's kind of a cute ending to it.
I like, again, like it feels like a Jeff Murphy Young Guns 2 ending. It feels at place in the film. Yeah. Although I was wondering throughout the film, like as we got to that ending, I was like, this seems like Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Like he gets to the end and then he's like, I'm giving you
Little
my
Wizard
factory.
of Oz,
and I was like, is there no conflict at the end? And we got a couple of complications, but I did feel like the ending, the whole like psychedelic Stargate sequence where they're all fighting over it.
Zooming on Elmis,
I liked the look and feel of that. I just wish that there'd have been a little bit more setup for the like reveal at the end, because I was like, I know how it's going to end, but explain to me how it ends that way.
Exactly. That's not a lot of explanation that needed to really enjoy the overall film.
Yeah. So I had fun watching it, but it's like it was more of a frustrating experience with the faults, where it's like, I know you can do better.
It's there. The great film is behind it somewhere.
Exactly.
So, I know a lot of people haven't seen it. Please check it out. It's available for free on Pluto TV right now. You probably, if you're a sci-fi fan, you probably a little bit enjoy it as well. As a writer, you're probably not going to like, this needs a lot of work, but aesthetically, it's enjoyable. Yeah.
Yeah. So down below, let us know your thoughts on Freejack. And then make sure to pitch us a remake. Tell us what you would change about the film if you were going to bring it out today. Yeah. We'd love to hear your thoughts on it, because there is a lot you could go with this movie. So,
exactly. A lot of avenues.
Yeah, so please share with us your idea for a Bonejacker spinoff. And then make sure you like and subscribe to the channel. There are 2 free things that you can do. They help us immensely, and they make sure you never miss new episodes of the show as they come out.
You can
also check out that Patreon link down below. You get access to Picks with Kyle and Nick, our Road to De Palma show. You get say in the films that we cover on the show, which is fantastic. There's a lot of movies, only 2
We will love the opportunity for somebody else to pick the movies we talk about.
Tell us what to do. And until next time, you can find all of our film reviews over at goatfilmreviews.com.
There, we got to trip you up. And I'm Nick from the St. Paul Filmcast. Once again, thanks.
That's it.